we are looking at 3 vintage 16-inch table fans. They all look fairly similar, and I thought it would be interesting to do a general comparison video. So the fan on the left is a Galaxy, the fan in the middle is a Tozai, and the fan on the right is a Sears. So I'm going to remove the motor covers on these fans, and we're going to just make some general observations about the motors, similarities and differences, anything else that comes to mind. And then we'll run the fans separately and see what we come up with. Should be interesting. All right, we're looking at the motors on these fans now. Before we get into that, though, I thought it was interesting. I just want to look at the blade nuts on these. See, the caps are basically all have the same face. The guard nuts, though, are different. This is from the Sears fan. This one is from the Tozai. So the Sears has a bigger guard nut there, and then this one is from the Galaxy. So those are all different. The Sears and the Tozai all thread into the motor shaft. The Galaxy has threads on the motor shaft. So here's the Galaxy, the Tozai, and the Sears. The motor castings on all 3 fans look pretty much the same. The only difference is in the Galaxy fan. This one has this notch here, and also the back half of the motor looks like it has a slightly larger diameter than the front. Other than that, I think it's identical. The Tozai and the Sears are definitely identical. All 3 have this rubber gasket here, which is pretty distinct or unique, I think, to usually I see them on the Lasco Galaxy fans. What's kind of weird about this too is that the Galaxy has this this like washer here, or this thing here that holds the wick in place, whereas this one doesn't have that, and it doesn't have any wick either. And it's not like it just wore out and crumbled and fell out. There's no wick on the other side either. And I think this is a pretty low hours fan. So I'm inclined to believe that they just did not put oil wicks in these motors. And this is the one that was made in Taiwan. I believe the other 2, the Sears and the Galaxy, claim to be made in the United States. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about the Sears fan or the Galaxy, really, but those don't have a designated country of manufacture. This one says made in Taiwan on it. But look at the windings. The windings are at least the most colorful out of the fans. This one, though, it looks like the windings are probably a little better quality. I think this is probably the oldest fan out of the three. Just seeing how the windings are tied, they're thicker too. The windings are thicker. The way they're tied looks a little more old school. See this one? This still looks decent. It looks like pretty decent quality, but it's really irritating that they didn't put oil wicks in here. This one they did, but they did not put this this thing here. That's not the original wick in there either. I've replaced that. This one still has the original wick, but it doesn't have that washer on the front holding it in. See, the bases on these two are pretty much the same, just a slightly different color. Speed selector switches are a different color. And of course on the Galaxy, that's pretty standard Galaxy. Okay, we'll spin these around. Once again, pretty interesting. Pretty interesting how these are wired differently. This is just wired directly to the capacitor. This one has leads coming off the capacitor, it looks like. So you have more of a mess here. Whereas this one is just hardwired. And then you just have this this smaller piece here covering the oscillator gear, whereas on the other two you have that, but it encompasses the whole top part of this, and then has these things here that hold the harness in place, here and here. This one doesn't have the lower one. So all three are wired differently. This has a clear wire harness and a clear oscillator cover. This one is white. Look at the capacitors, 4 microfarad, 230 volts. Shen L. Here's the Tozai. 4 microfarad, 250. SLR Taiwan. And the Sears one, I would have to do some work to get that one out of there. I'm guessing it's probably also 4 microfarad capacitor. But so the oscillator boxes and the wiring are different on all three. Very interesting. So the oscillator functions are different, or they're totally different assemblies on all three. That's interesting. But I'm inclined to believe that the motors are essentially the same. Allegedly, the Lasko Galaxy fans were made by Sanyo, and it would certainly seem like the Tozai at least sourced the motor core anyway from the same company, Lasko or Sanyo. But then possibly produce their own oscillator components made to retrofit, and then produce their own bases in Taiwan. So I guess the bases, the switches, the oscillation, and the wiring and everything are probably Taiwan, while the motors are sourced from Sanyo. I think this is the same motor. I'm gonna have to do another comparison video. There's the Patent by Sanyo fan and the Frigid by Sanyo fan, I think, have the same motors. These are pretty widely used, it would seem, but very good motors. I mean, some of the best motors ever, I would think. Then you've got the Sears fan here that is nearly identical to the Tozai, but at least they put oil wicks in these. The windings look very similar to the Tozai fan also, although the way that they're tied just looks like generally higher quality on the Sears fan. So I'm guessing these weren't all made the same year. The Tozai kind of seems like it's a little cheaper. It might be a little bit newer, a couple of years newer than the other two fans, and then I think the Galaxy is probably the oldest one, and ironically the highest quality of the three. So the Galaxy has the blue acrylic blade, obviously. The Tozai has this flexible, pretty standard plastic blade, much more lightweight than the other two. And the Sears has this gray, smoky colored acrylic blade that's heavier, pretty much the same as the blue. So that's interesting. I think they're the same motors, essentially, when it comes down to it, just with some different components and how they're wired and assembled. So we'll get these back together and run these now. Alright, so I'm going to run the fans now, and it's going to be pretty basic. I'm going to start with the Galaxy. We'll run it from low to medium to high. I'm not going to run the oscillation on any of them. We'll just go from low to medium to high, working left to right, and do the spin downs and note any similarities that come up. So we'll start with Galaxy now. Here's the low speed. I don't want to get too much of the wind stream noise in the video. It's got kind of a nice motor whine to it, typical Lasco Galaxy sound. There's a plastic bag behind me, try to get rid of that. Don't need any interference. Okay, we'll go to high speed. All right, now we'll go to the Tozai, and we'll start on low. Right away, it seems to have similar motor sound, a kind of high frequency whine. A lot of the Tozai fans, or the Taiwanese fans, they don't really have that sound. It's a very distinct sound that you usually just get from Sanyo or the Lasco fans. Some Panasonic fans have it, Panasonic or KDK, but usually the Taiwanese fans don't really have that sound. This one does. And the blade sounds a little bit different on this one because it's that soft or flexible plastic blade. It's made out of a different material, so the air movement itself just has kind of a different sound. Has more of a wispy kind of sound to it, but the motor sounds very similar to the Galaxy fan. I'll go to high speed now. Okay, now what I want to do is shut this off and then turn on the Galaxy on high speed right away and just make a quick comparison. Very, very similar sounding. Okay, and we will go to Sears now. Start it on low. This one has the same kind of high frequency sound in the motor. This one's a little quieter though. I don't think this one runs quite as fast as the other two. This one's a little more mellow. I also think this one has more hours on it than either of the other two fans. And again, once we go to the high speed, I want to shut this off and then turn on the Galaxy fan. That's what we're going to use as our reference. Yeah, so just by the way the fans sound, they sound like the same motor. They all sound the same as far as just the general motor sound. Now what I want to do is kind of space these out a little bit, run these on high, stand in front of them, and just kind of get a sense of which one might be the strongest on high speed. There's no real way to measure that, but it'll be fun, so I'm gonna do it. So we'll go high speed on all three. I can't tell the difference. They all seem about the same to me. There's no distinct winner here. Well, that was fun. I thought it would be a good idea just to get these fans together. I don't know. I think it's pretty rare that people would have all three of these fans. So it just seemed like a unique opportunity to get these all on the same table and do a general comparison video. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.